Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Next item, please.
So moved. Oh. I'm used to the old.
As we get used to using our machine. Moved by Commissioner Marecki, supported by Commissioner Dobb on the minutes from the March 1st meeting. Any discussion, deletions to the minutes? Hearing none, please vote. So much. Next item, please. None today, and the clerk, I've asked her that we go and begin with the contracts first, and then we'll have the discussion second. So next item, Madam Clerk.
Of the agenda, item number 1 is requesting commission approval of the reappointment of Kevin McNamara to the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network Board of Directors.
Number 2.
Number 2 is requesting commission approval of the reappointment of Karima Bentunsi to the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network Board of Directors.
I know Supervisor McNamara had a conflict, wasn't able to come today. Oh, hey, you scared all of us. There's Supervisor McNamara. Hello, sir.
Hello, hello, Chairwoman.
Thank you for joining us, sir. And do we have Karima? Is she on as well? All right. Okay, let's do this in order.
I am actually.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you both for being here. First, I'd like to entertain a motion for items 1 and 2. It's been motioned by Commissioner Clark Coleman, supported by Commissioner Kinlock. Discussion on the items. Again, we do have Mr. Supervisor Kevin McNamara and Ms. Karima here. Are there any questions to either of them before we allow them to give remarks? Any questions to either of them about their service on the Detroit Wayne County Integrated Health Network? Okay, Mr. McNamara, you are item 1. So if you want to give a brief remark, sir.
No, I'm very excited for the mental health growth that we've been able to see. Horribly enough, a lot of it's due to COVID. But the influx of those funds, we had 10 beds in Livonia to handle residents that needed to have an overnight stay, get their medication correct and things like that. We're now doing a much larger facility in Baltimore and Detroit. And we are planning on building out at 7 Mile in Livernois with the help of the county and the state of Michigan. It'll be one of the first mental health hospitals in the state in 40 years, 20 years, 30. And we're putting in an administration building. We're moving to Woodward Avenue to move the administration there because we need the room so that we can actually take care of patients in the other buildings. Most of this is by grants from COVID, and we're very excited that we're going in the direction we're going. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you for your past service as well. Ms. Karima?
Thank you. I'm equally excited about all the projects that are ongoing that Mr. McNamara mentioned. Excited about the opportunity to serve our community. So thank you. It's an honor and a privilege.
Thank you again for your service as well. So we have a motion for 1 and 2 for the reappointment to DWIN. Any further discussion by anyone? Commissioner Basham.
And just looking at our history, if you look back at Governor John Engler, he eliminated the mental health facilities in the state. And Wayne County used to have its own hospital, and it used to have its own mental health facility, and it was centrally located in Wayne County. And now we don't. And so now we're starting to crawl back to where we were at this stage many, many years ago. So we need to look back at history if we want to look at our future. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, DWIN. We are crawling back slowly but surely. Thank you, Commissioner. Any additional discussion? Okay, we have a motion and support. Everyone, please vote.
Motion carries.
Okay, congratulations to both of you, and thank you for joining our meeting today.
Thank you.
Thank
I'll
you.
be monitoring quietly in the back.
Thank you, Supervisor. All right, next item, Madam Clerk.
We're moving to the agenda. Item number 5 is requesting commission approval of amendment number 2 to a 2-year comparable source professional services contract with a 2-year option to renew between the Charter County of Wayne and Blue Water Technologies.
I'm going to allow Mr. Johnson, Mr. Ours Blue Water, or someone from IT.
It's ITs and I.
So these are the Blue Water Technologies. Blue Water, of course, does a lot of our work here in this room as well as on the 7th floor. This is some additional work that they're doing. We can either wait for Hector to come down if there's particular questions, or we can take a motion. I do see a motion already by Commissioner Kinlock and question by Commissioner Anderson. So Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have to remind everyone with the issues that we've had, and I think that's been with the Blue Water, with our system here. But I'm wondering, do we have an out with this contract that if this is not, these issues aren't resolved, or if we continue to have them, that we have an escape clause, I guess, for lack of a better term, without any penalties? Because I think we've experienced probably for the last 6 months or more issues, and it's something that needs to be corrected. And it seems as though up to this point, keep my fingers crossed about today's meeting, but we have had a lot of issues, and caused me to wonder whether or not they're up to correcting the issues.
I don't know. Well, yes, we do. There's a question. Every contract can be terminated. Am I correct, counsel? Every contract can be terminated by this body. We are still in the process of them trying. The first issues were, of course, supply chain, and then the issues that we have with the microphones and some of the other issues that we're trying to resolve. I want to say that the biggest thing is as a sole source. They're the only ones that do it. So to have another company may have them have to come in and revamp, take out everything and bring in entirely new equipment. And we're already pretty much down the road with this. So we're hoping that this last contract will fix some of the things that are an issue. I don't know if Mr. Johnson wants to add anything to that. Microphone.
I may have misread it, but I thought they're the same company that we have doing our system here in the council or in the commission.
They do here, they do all the conference rooms throughout the building.
I did have a question about, there was one 730, I think. And I think the only conference room that we typically use is, what is it, 7, the one on the north end of the building. This one says the south end of the building on 4-7, unless I misread or misunderstand. And I haven't seen any equipment and very little that's being used at that conference room.
We don't have any equipment in that conference, other than a telephone. We have a telephone, but that's it. Darcel, did you have
Someone
something?
speak to that, what they're planning on doing with that conference room? Because that's in
Good
this
morning.
contract also.
Is the mic on? Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Darcel Brown, Commissioner Liaison from the Wayne County Executive's Office. We do have a representative on the way down to provide some more details regarding some of the questions that were asked. Otherwise, we'll recommend moving it to full board, and we can make sure we get these answers back to you by that time.
Would that also pertain to item number 6? That's AT&T.
Yep. So actually, someone else is coming down for that item as well. So if we can either move that to after the discussion, if that's okay.
All right, we'll move these to the end of the meeting and see if we get someone down here. So 5 and 6, Madam Clerk, we'll move to the end of the meeting. We can go back to item number 3.
We are returning to the agenda. Item number 3 is a discussion on toxic waste coming into Wayne County.
All right, so as we all know, back on February 3rd, there was a train crash in Ohio. And then a few weeks after that, we learned that there was some of the toxic waste came from Ohio to Wayne County facilities. Unfortunately, not Eagle, but the EPA directed that move, and they were not transparent with identifying and telling county officials or even some state officials that had happened. I understand that the governor was not readily in knowledge of that. Eagle was, of course, but not the governor herself. And then members of the county government weren't aware as well. Congressional delegation, the executive office, the commission were not notified as well. So this is a 30,000 foot resolution that we have before us. There are so many issues pertaining to this toxic waste dump in Van Buren as well as in Romulus. There's a lot that we can talk about. Well, this was 30,000. This is a resolution. This is a high level resolution. Thank you, sir. This resolution is a high level of some of the things that we can discuss. There's so much more to take a deeper dive in, but to the public at this public meeting, I wanted us to get explanation from the administration as the timeline as they saw it. The resolution speaks to notification, communication, and transparency, which were things that were lacking when it came to the toxic waste coming in from Ohio to our facilities and here in Wayne County. I think we all know that the company is licensed to do that. The question is, I can't answer this. I don't know who can answer this, is why would these facilities be in the most populated county in the state of Michigan when there are so many other places that aren't as populated that these type of facilities can go? I don't know which came first, the facility or the residents. If it was the facility that came first, why were permits given for residential build so close to that type of facility? If it was the facility, again, why was it permitted to be in such a the most populated county in the state of Michigan? So with all of that being said, we're going to start by having Mr. Deputy County Executive Azad Turfy come in, because he was one of the first people in Wayne County that found out what was going on. We'll get the timeline from him, and then we'll have any questions that you may want to ask of him, and then we'll move forward to the resolution. Deputy County Executive Turfy. Microphone, please.
Thank you. I should know that.
Good
morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm going to give a timeline of events of how everything kind of transpired that day. To open up, I know there was a breakdown in communication when all that happened, where we failed to notify the commission of what information we have. Found that issue and taken corrective measures to. Long story short, there was one of the cabinet members was on vacation, assigned somebody to make sure they continue the chain, and that didn't happen. That's where. On February 24th at about 3:50 p.m., I received a call from our Homeland Security and Emergency Management. When I received the call, they had received a call from an individual from a local community saying that they got information that toxic waste from East Palestine, Ohio is being transported to Wayne County. We did not know how it's being transported. We didn't know where it was coming from specifically. We just knew it was toxic waste and it was headed this way. Shortly after that, I sent out a notification to our executive staff to look into the matter, start researching it. Spoke with Dr. Abdul Sayed to see exactly what are these chemicals, what are we dealing with. We began researching it as a staff. At about 4:25 p.m., 4:30-ish, I reached out to the governor's office to see what they knew about it. Initially, when I made my call, they were unaware. Spoke with the governor's chief of staff. She was unaware of the matter. She said, I'll call you right back. A few minutes after that, I got a return call back from her just before 5 o'clock, about 5 o'clock, saying that they just got information from Eagle. Eagle was in the process of notifying them when I called to let them know that they did approve a permit or gave them permission to be headed this way. A couple minutes after that, picked up the phone, called Congresswoman Debbie Dingell to find out, what does she know? And if she could get us in contact with the EPA to, find out exactly what's going on. Shortly after about 5:10 p.m., we made the decision that we were going to call a press conference to bring attention to this matter. No county official was notified. We were not notified of the shipment coming up here. We were not notified which route it's taken. And these are a lot of important matters that we need to know. The week prior to that, there was a train derailment in Van Buren Township. And part of our concern was if it was coming up here on train, we would like to notify at least the communities that that train is traveling through to know that, this situation may be happening. Called the press conference. We scheduled it for 7 p.m. At about, and during this time period is that obviously just imagine a lot of phone calls, us going back and forth, trying to exactly find out what's going on. And when situations like this happen and, I won't call this a crisis, but it was something important to a lot of people. I think we all watched the news and seen the effects that, East Palestine was suffering. And that's the last thing we would want over here. And if we have anything, we would want to let our constituents aware of that. At 6:30 p.m., we did get on a call with the governor, her chief of staff, Eagle, EPA. Some of our congressional delegation was on that call. And we received everything that they knew at that time. Everything that Eagle knew, everything that EPA knew. We gave them our concerns. We were asking a bunch of questions that they quite didn't really have the answers to. Went down to the press conference. Press conference started at about 7:05. And during the press conference, we received a text from EPA letting us know that all shipments have been halted to both sites. The site in Van Buren Township, which is the landfill, and the site in Romulus, which is the deep injection well. And I checked this morning, and as of this morning, there has not been any more additional shipments that were received. The last shipments that were received on the evening of February 24th.
Okay. And thank you for that. And we do have that in writing. But again, at this public meeting, I wanted the public to know also what the timeline was, because it's important that everything is transparent. And the biggest key that stuck to me was the lack of transparency between Eagle, EPA, and then the Wayne County administrators here, because that's something that's important for us to know. The commissioner of that district, the county executive, the governor, all were kind of out the loop on that. So I think that was just important for you to give us that time frame. And again, this resolution that I put together speaks to that. Now, of course, EPA, as we know, has the right to direct toxic waste to wherever they deem appropriate. What we're saying in this resolution is, well, one, we would like it to not come to Michigan again, not come to Wayne County, the most populated county in the state again, especially when we are so close to the river and the waterways. If anything should happen and it goes into our waterways, into the rivers and the lakes, that would be disastrous. But at the least they can do, if they're going to do that, is to notify us. We're going to continue to have informational hearings on this through our Health and Human Services Committee. But again, this is just the 30,000 first take on this to make sure that we're bringing something together. The resolution talks to the fact of communication. It talks to the fact supporting Senator Geis's Bill 100 that she's put forth that puts 2 persons on rail trains to make sure that if there's an issue, there's more than 1 person on rail trains. So there's a lot to unpack in this whole conversation. I know Commissioner Basham and Haddis has been working on this for many years as it pertains to their residents and the communities that they represent. We want to make sure, again, that we're keeping all Wayne County residents safe when it comes to injection wells, when it comes to landfills, when it comes to those items that are going into those spaces as best as possible. We would love for it not to come. I think we can all probably agree on that. We would love for it not to come, but there needs to be some type of better communication when it does. At this time, I would like to, I have a list here. I'll start with Commissioner Haydus as we go through and discuss this issue and the resolution. Commissioner Haydus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, this issue, it's so important to everyone who live in the state of Michigan. I took a position many years when I was elected official in the city of Wayne against the injection well.
Speak close to the mic, sir.
I think sometime when your voice going against powerful organization, very rich, nobody could hear you. We got to a point now to where it showed the risk. Incident happened in Ohio, and we know their risk endanger the people's life, take their peace of mind away from them where they live. Now their license, it's up for renewal. And 2 things, probably the most important thing in our life, the human life and the water. They both connected. There's no life if no water. And we don't need the water if there's no human being. To bring facility close to the largest fresh water in the world, in a state where it's very populated and industrialized, in a put injection well, despite the people's opposition. There's not 1 person in the area support that effort when they try to pull a permit to build it, except the people who invested money to make money in it. So now the license is up for renewal. And I hope the county and the state stand up strong. If you need facility like that, move it away from the water, move it away from the people. Some people told me it's a wishful thinking, Al. I said, but it's how I feel about it. And I like my colleague and the administration to hear my feeling. Doesn't matter how much they promise us safety. 2 persons on the train, that in my opinion, doesn't prevent accident, incident, and disaster. The only thing could assure us some safety. Facility should not be in Romulus. And the dry hazardous waste should not come to Van Buren. And if we want to do something and be successful and answer to the people who count on us, I think it's the only solution. It's my voice, and I hope you carry that to the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I know you're representing your residents and they feel it just as you feel. So thank you for those.
Thank you.
Commissioner Basham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For 13 and a half years, I represented Romulus. This goes back, this is not a new issue. It's new that a train had hazardous waste and a train got derailed and a train, as a result of that hazardous, it got shipped up to Michigan. But if you look at Michigan and how this all happened to begin with, first of all, Michigan has had, I don't know if it's more now or not, but they had 13 hazardous waste in our state, but we had 0 commercial hazardous waste. So this one in Romulus is the first commercial deep injection well for hazardous waste. Back, if you Google hazardous waste Romulus, back in 2000, early 3, 4, I was fighting against that back then. And actually it was funded through corruption. There was $40 million taken from the Detroit Police Officers Fire and Pension Fund with not 1 penny in return. So that's who funded it, was the Detroit Police Officers Fire and Pension Fund. And what it did, the reason for that, the only commercial hazardous waste was coming from Canada, and it would save that Canada 4 hours of trucking because there were 3+ hazardous commercial deep injection wells in rural Ohio near the Ohio Turnpike. It would save them a total of 4 hours of trucking. That's what that was about. So that's why it was put in a blue collar town close to the border, close to the lakes and all that stuff. And what's really interesting, it was also supported by, and you can, this is in Google, John Conyers wrote a letter to the EPA saying, permit this deep injection well. He changed his opinion. He wrote a letter, but the letter actually was written by his wife, who got 10 grand, wound up going to prison for it. And anyway, but he wrote a letter to the EPA and they permitted it. That was our congressman. And so why, if you look back at this, it's got a long history of corruption. And quite frankly, I've got the history on it too. And so it's not a new issue. It's an old issue. But to put some public exposure on it, which I'm glad we did. We even had Jeffrey Feiger volunteered and come out and spoke against it. We had Mayor Jesus that came over and spoke against it. Mayor of Preby from Taylor spoke against it. Mayors from all over spoke against it. There was nobody that wanted that except a certain unique group of people that was bringing in millions of dollars from the Detroit Police Officers Fire and Pension Fund, finally got nailed by the FBI, finally wound up going to prison, Monica. And so there was others that was corrupt by this. This come from corruption's where it started from a long time ago. I applaud and give high regards to Rashida Tlaib, Congresswoman Dingell. Also, relative to the not being notified, the county, the administration didn't notify the commissioners. I seen it on TV. I didn't get any notification. I'm a commissioner. You'd think that we would get notified. It's easier sometimes to get forgiveness than it is permission. I guess that's the way things work nowadays. But anyway, God bless our Congress people, and I hope that the holdup there was the EPA, and they're on it now, and God bless them. I hope that they get it stopped and that they don't renew the permit for the Romulus hazardous deep injection well. Enough said.
And because the Congress people do, of course, support EPA, it is our hope that they will continue to fight for us and fight, this issue to the EPA to let them know that we are not wanting these things in our neighborhood. So, and I know they are very supportive of the actions that we're taking here today.
Well, and Debbie and Rashida are not shy.
No, they are not. Let me go to Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My colleague, Commissioner Basham, will recall the meeting that he arranged at one of the hotels in Romulus about the deep injection well. And I was there, I guess that was in 2003, 2004. And we had a huge crowd of people that were there, very concerned, and rightly so, about this deep injection well. And I believe Congressman Conyers, or not Conyers, but Congressman Dingell was there himself, I believe, also. And it was to no avail, apparently, because they've continued to push things down the well. And we need stronger action by EPA and others to stop this. because I do not believe that it is completely safe as they allege it is. But it's a money-making venture, and unfortunately, in our society, sometimes when things are big money's involved, the protection to the consumers and protection to the citizens falls by the wayside. I appreciate this resolution. I don't know if at this time it would be advisable to put a time limit on the advance notice. I noticed on page 2, it's next to the last paragraph speaks to the advance notice and a timely advance notice. But I was thinking, we should have at least 48-hour notice when something like this. And I know the citizens of Plymouth have for years put up with this train coming through, and it's been nicknamed the death train because it carries toxic chemicals there too. Over the years, this has been a major concern out there, I know. But I appreciate the resolution. That was the only concern I have, whether or not we would want to put a time frame in there of how long that notice should be, because that language might be interpreted differently by different people. That's all. But thank
Would you
you.
like to make
Madam
a
Chair.
friendly amendment to have that say 48 hours advance notice?
I guess I would like
Or
to ask
72 or?
Deputy Executive to, if he feels like that would be helpful, or whether or not that's something we should work out down the road. So
I think it's important, as soon as they know that the toxic waste is being transported this way, I think efforts should be started at that moment to notify us. My only concern about putting a time frame in there is maybe they might know like 2 weeks in advance, and they say, okay, well, we got 48 hours to let them know, and we need time as a government to let the people know what's going on. This is about transparency. It's about giving out information to the public so they know what's traveling up and down their roads, because it's traveling this way. It's going to come either by rail, road, or water. And that is things that we need to make sure that we're accountable. But I think that is a good suggestion, to require that.
Madam Chair, maybe if it was worded in such a way that as soon as it becomes knowledge of those departments, that we receive the notification. And as Mr. Sherfy said, I'm sure advance notice would be, and for them, I'm
Right.
sure they get it before 48 hours in most cases. So as soon as knowledge becomes available, or as things have been made available to either of these agencies, that they make that information available to us.
And council will work on that wording and have something by the end of the meeting that we can add for a friendly amendment. All right, and then again, this is something, there's so much more to do, and I'm thankful for Commissioner Baker McCormick as head of Health Human Services Committee, and our former Sierra Club member, Tim Killeen, who has been on these issues for a great deal of his life. And Commissioner Killeen also had some great suggestions on, as we take a deeper dive further down the line in the committee meeting, on things that we can look at as far as questioning, what's going into those toxic, how far down are they going? Is it solid? Is it liquid? There's tons of questions and answers, which we'll be taking a deeper dive into as we move along with this issue. Again, it's nothing new. I mean, we've had this issues over the years that I've been here. We had a trip out there about the lining once from years back. So this is nothing new, but I think the big media attention that the train derailment got in Ohio just brought it back up to the forefront of the people, especially when they started talking about moving the stuff here to Michigan and to Wayne County. So we just have to remain vigilant as we think of how we as a body can make either laws, ordinances, or support our Michigan legislature and our congressional delegation to make sure that we're keeping our people safe here in Michigan and Wayne County. To that end, Commissioner Marecki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a couple questions, and I don't know if anybody can even answer them. And Ray was helpful with the history, if it's all accurate, the history of how this well was able to go into that area. Are there any other deep injection wells in the state? Does anyone know?
As far as I know, that's the only one. I see Commissioner Basham's.
I have a couple questions. That, and where, do we know where the waste went when they halted it before they came to Wayne County? And then the third one is, who determines if the license is renewed for this deep injection well? Because I keep hearing that it's up soon, and I'm just wondering.
So,
Go ahead and then Turfy,
okay,
then Basham.
so to answer your question, as far as the licensing, Eagle regulates everything that's in the air. EPA regulates everything that's below ground. Both these sites in Van Buren Township, the landfill and the well in Romulus, both are up for renewal with their license. Things that you need to know. On February 1st, there was a town hall hearing in Romulus regarding the renewal of the sites. No one showed up to the hearing. No one knew about it. So we've been in communication with a congressional delegation in the state to try to get them to have another hearing date to reopen that up. And they're working toward having another date. And I think that's important. If they do have a date, I think that will be a good opportunity for people to go and voice their concerns and ask questions that is important to them. Your next question was
Where the waste went?
okay. So we did receive waste into the well, and the landfill did receive soil from East Palestine. We learned on the 24th. We learned probably the day after the 24th that some of the waste was actually coming here like 2 days before. So when we received the information, it was 2 days late. Like the waste was already coming here. Don't know how much showed up, don't know the quantity, but I do know it halted during our press conference. They turned all their shipments around and sent them back to Ohio. Yeah, so, and to answer your questions, I believe I'm not definite, but I believe that's the only deep injection well. And some of the conversation, I know the chairwoman brought it up, kind of national conversation around this is, there is a need for these to dispose of toxic waste. The question is why should they be in highly dense populated areas? And that's where the conversation is kind of headed now.
Thank you.
To that point, Commissioner Basham had a comment.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. There are 13 hazardous deep injection wells in Michigan. Usually businesses that require it have them. They're not transporting it. That one in Romulus is the only commercial hazardous deep injection well in the state of Michigan. It's the only commercial. And the reason it's commercial, they were going to make money from Canada, bringing their hazardous waste. Instead of heading it down to Ohio, saves them 4 hours of trucking, they could dump it right here in Romulus and going back to Canada. So that's the only commercial hazardous deep injection well, but there are 13 existing deep injection wells, hazardous, not commercial though. Does that make sense? Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Clark Coleman?
Who has the final call on whether or not that license will be renewed?
Eagle and EPA.
Who does Eagle report to?
The governor's office.
Governor's office. Okay, so are you saying that it's the governor's call?
If I'm not mistaken, Eagle is a department under the administration, and therefore it would be the governor's call. I don't think the legislature, does the legislature? Yes, it's simply the governor's call.
Strictly the governor's call. then I think that they're the ones that our delegation need to be talking to, rather than the national, rather than, you know, the Congress. They should be, Rashida Tlaib and Debbie Dingell need to be talking to the governor's office, because if they're the one, if she's the one that makes the final call, I certainly think that she would be the one that you need to be asking not to have it renewed. I wouldn't want it in my backyard. I can tell you that right now. I don't care what kind of studies they come up with to say that they're harmless. I don't care. I wouldn't want it in my backyard. That's my take on it. And you know what? And I've heard about this for years. When I became a legislator, when I became was elected to the House, I didn't know what a deep injection well was. But after hearing Ray Basham sing that song for the whole 12 years I was in Lansing, I got a upfront knowledge of what it was. And I can tell you, I wouldn't want it in my backyard. That's my take on it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Killeen.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think this is a difficult discussion to have today when these kinds of things happen and it blows up in the media and everybody gets all excited and all sorts of stuff gets said that's not accurate. So I want to thank you, Madam Chair, for having the Health and Human Services Committee. I will be speaking with the chair of the committee immediately afterwards. We need to bring the people before us that have the answers, not only for ourselves, but also for the public. These hazardous, the landfill and the injection well has had garbage, toxic junk, crap put into them for years. This is the one all of a sudden that everybody gets excited about. So I think in committee, we can answer the questions that commissioners have had here. Who has the authority and the sign off to site these facilities? What about re-upping the license for them to continue? I think we need to know what the pressure points are and where we really go to say change this. I think one thing that is in agreement with everybody that I've talked to and the reports in the media, there is absolutely no obligation to notify Wayne County of anything with regards to this. It's already come up a little bit that toxic waste is a national issue. Before there were toxic waste injection wells and landfills, people were just putting this garbage everywhere on the back of their property. A lot of these places are the subject of EPA cleanup efforts now that we're spending money on. And so to create toxic waste sites was actually a step forward. But then it's NIMBY, nobody in my backyard. So then it becomes a matter of who's got the political oomph to keep it out of theirs and put it in somebody else. So I think we need to understand this a little better. I will say that, and we learned this during the Canadian trash argument, and of course, Canadian trash never stopped coming to this state. A lot of people think because there was a big hubbub 20 years ago, the Canadian waste got stopped. So this, along with Canadian waste and with this issue, here's the key, folks. The Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution. That's why this is a federal. And that's why Canadian waste still comes here, that to regulate interstate commerce. And that's a national issue, not a local issue. And just like, and I have questions about Senate Bill 100 too, about mandating 2 people on a train. I can pretty much guarantee you that if the governor signs that, if the legislature passes and the governor signs it, the railroads will be in the court the next day. Because again, railroads have had their way nationally for a few hundred years. And they're not going to allow on a federal railroads to have states have 50 different regulatory environments out there as trains go in and out of their state, right? Do we put another person on when we get to the Ohio border? Do we take it off? But yeah, the notification issue, and I'm in contact with a gentleman that used to run the Great Lakes. There was a Great Lakes environmental group at Wayne State Law School, and now the guy's working over at U of D. In the article I shared with everyone a couple of days after this happened, they talked to this gentleman, and we'll get him before our committee. And they asked him about all the questions we have today. He said, there's two things you can do. One, raise the tipping fees so that Michigan would be too expensive of a place to have toxic waste come to. That might be an interesting fight up in Lansing and in the courts. But he's like, raise the tipping fees or don't approve the siting in the first place. Which tells me that once they're cited, you ain't got nothing to say about it. So I think that if we get, we have a gentleman in this county that knows everything. He's the division head of the solid waste division, I believe. How long has toxic waste been going out there? What have we known about that? In some cases, it's going to be 20 years that it's just been going in there. Nobody's been paying attention to it. But this thing brings it to the fore. So I think we need to be thoughtful. My intention in committee is that we go through all the steps and all the questions that people have today and lay out what the environment is, who has what approval, right? And then I think from there we can, if we think we need to draft some sort of ordinance, if we have that authority or some sort of resolution. But I'm hoping that probably it's going to be too quick for next week at HHS, but for the meeting 3 weeks from now to line folks up and to get the right people. First of all, let's just tell the right story before we start getting into solutions. Let's first find out what the regulatory environment is, what can be done, what can't be done. Is it feds? Is it the state? Who is it? And then let's go from there, because as I've been saying to people, 5 months from now, this is going to be forgotten out in the Publix, right? Something else will come up and everybody will go. And then 8 years from now, something bad will happen and there'll be an uproar again. How come nobody did anything? So I think now that it is before us in this way, that this is the time for very thoughtful looking into this and thoughtful any kind of public policy that comes out of it. So I want to thank you, Madam Chair, for your comment about and the email for saying we should handle this in have a real hearing in HHS committee, because there's a lot of, as we say these days, things to unpack about this. So let's get all the facts before us, and that would be my intention in a few weeks here in HHS. But again, nobody was mandated to tell us anything. And of course, and people use the term stopped. What the EPA said is we're going to pause shipments. And in response to the political pressure here in Michigan, they got shipped other places. It's not like that way, So, okay, what has that accomplished? So let's really look at this and really get something substantive done out of this.
Yep.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. And you're right, because I have a commissioner friend in Harris County, Texas, and which is Houston. And I think they received.
They sent it down there.
Yes, he wants to know what we're doing here in Michigan.
From Ohio to Texas.
So that they can do the same thing down in Texas if we do an ordinance or a resolution. So yes, they're going across the country. Commissioner Baker McCormick, then Vice Chair Pro Tem Baydun.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Commissioner Killeen just indicated, we're going to dig into this much deeper, and any input from any of the commissioners, especially Commissioner Basham, who's been working on this issue for a long time, we would greatly appreciate that. And of course, Commissioner Killeen has a lot of knowledge about this whole area. So I'm leaning on him to help in that manner. One of the questions I have is, have we reached out to the company at all?
I've been in conversation with Republic,
Okay.
and, you know, they.
Microphone, sir. I'm sorry.
Yep, sorry, it's kind of low.
I know. Is it on?
It's on,
There you
it's
go.
just,
Okay,
I just gotta
got it.
get close to it.
Okay.
So I did reach out to the Republic. We have been in conversation. And they apologize for not notifying us. You know, they said they're gonna definitely add us to the list if they do receive, you know, anything that we would need to be aware of, and such. And I did speak with a gentleman from Republic this morning just to confirm that we haven't received any more toxic waste from East Palestine, and he confirmed that we have not.
And did they indicate how long the pause would be in receiving waste from Palestine or any types of chemicals that are highly toxic, I guess? Or like,
That question is better to be asked to Republic, because my understanding is they halted the waste from East Palestine. I don't know what else is being shipped. They're still licensed to receive.
so they're not willing to share that information as to what chemicals or toxins they're receiving? Have we asked that question? Like, can you provide us with a list of the materials and toxins that are coming into your facility?
Yeah, I could be happy to connect you
We-
with them afterward, and you
Okay.
could ask, or we, you know.
Okay,
share
great,
with
great. Okay, and do you know, or do we know when the permitting process will take place?
Yeah, so I don't have a definite date from the information that I've been talking to the state and our EPA.
It's April or May,
It's in-
isn't it?
It's in April. It's not a definite date.
Yeah.
And it's in process now, and they're trying to set up another town hall for the public to come in and, you know, voice their concerns.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Vice Chair Pro Tem Baydun.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, listening to my colleagues, I echo their frustration with this subject. I have learned a lot about this issue from my colleagues, Commissioner Basham and Aidus, in the last 2 weeks. Thank you for the historical perspective. Let me also say this. I want to applaud the Evans administration, the executive, the deputy executive, for taking the steps and calling for a press conference and stopping further shipments from being sent to Michigan. And also our dear friends, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and Congresswoman Dingell, for standing with us on this issue. It's troubling to hear some of these facts that there are 13 wells, but one of them is the commercial one. It's located in Wayne County, which is the largest county in the state of Michigan. And you hear about Canadian companies sending their waste to Michigan, to Wayne County specifically, because it's cheaper. They have a lot of land in Canada. Why don't they build these facilities in Canada? Why does Wayne County have to be the dumping ground of all of this toxic waste? I would be interested to know about the process of these licenses when they come up for renewal. We should all stand together, unified, in opposition to renewing the licenses for these facilities, because we are located in Michigan, which has the largest freshwater resource in the world, and these facilities should not exist in our own backyards. I'll speak to you as a real estate broker. On one of the questions on the seller's disclosure statement when we're selling a property, there's a question about environmental concerns. Are you aware of any hazardous material in your home? Are you located within so many miles of a toxic waste dump, I believe? So this ultimately also not only affects the health, which is paramount, also the values of these properties where they're located, in Romulus and in Van Buren. It's very frustrating to hear all of this, but again, as far as the communication, Commissioner Basham with the commission, I think Mr. Turfy addressed that, and I appreciate everything that you guys have done to put any further shipment coming to Michigan. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kniezek.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I really agreed with what Commissioner Killeen said in terms of, in my opinion, it's not fair to Assad to ask him to come here and tell us all of the situation and to represent the rules and regulations of the EPA and Eagle and everybody else. This commission, if we want to make a difference here, this is a policy conversation. This is a process conversation. We don't have the people in front of us today that can answer those questions. Of course, I don't mean that disrespectfully. I don't think it's fair to you to have you standing at the podium here. We need to lean into the power that we have as a commission if we want to do this right and if we want to make a change in the community. If we have questions for Eagle, and I'll say this, in some cases, I wish it were as simple as Eagle has a set of facts in front of them and they take a look at them and say, well, gosh, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound fair. We're going to say no to that. In some cases, the law is written such, as long as you check the right boxes, Eagle cannot say no. Even if they wanted to, even if they knew it was not in the interest of the public health because of the laws and who has written them over the last 40 years in this state, they can't say no, even if they wanted to. If we have questions for Eagle, let's ask them. If we want to hold the EPA accountable, haul their ass in here and let's ask them. Don't do it to the deputy county executive. Don't do it to the commissioners. I'm not taking a shot, Madam Chair. I hope you don't take it that way. But if we want to do this and do this right, the committee process that my colleague to my left can lead, let's do it. Let's be thorough. We don't have to blindside anybody. We don't have to be rude about it. We don't have to be disrespectful, but we need to have the right people at the table. We need to understand that process. We need to know where those opportunities and those bottlenecks exist and those opportunities to change the process. And so, I don't think anybody here is going to say that we agree with what happened. I don't think anybody is going to say that we want this in our community. There's tons of places across Michigan and across the country that don't have the population centers that we do here in Wayne County. I also want to make sure that we get it right and we don't bungle that process moving forward. So whatever I can do to be helpful, I know the 14 other colleagues here feel the same. Whatever we can do to be helpful, let's do it. If that's committee, if that's working with Eagle, Norfolk Southern, whoever, EPA, let's do it. Let's lean into the power that we have as commissioners. Let's not talk about it. Let's be about it because folks are watching. The time for action is now. We don't want to be sitting here in a couple of years hoping and wishing and praying that we had done it the right way years prior. So thank you for the time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. And you pretty much summarized what we're doing here today. I want Mr. Turfy to come because, of course, with the timeline piece, as I stated earlier, what happened and when it happened was very important to have that before all commissioners and to our listening public. So Mr. Turfy was here to explain that and let everyone know, to make sure that they didn't know before they knew, and to everyone to be on the same page, and to of course acknowledge the lack of transparency that unfortunately Eagle and EPA gave to them. So we wanted to make sure that he was there, not to answer all of the questions that would happen, but just to give the timeline of that day. And absolutely, we're going to take a deep dive in HH&S because that's where this belongs. But I thought it important that we come together as a body during this committee, the whole process, so that we could all get on the same page and agreeing that, yes, we need to do something and do it quickly. Unfortunately, it always takes a tragedy to bring things up to the forefront. And that's what happens, especially when you see dead fish in the lake and you know that the chemical that possibly caused that is now here in Wayne County. So I thought it was very important that we do this and then take that deeper dive at the committee level where they can really bring in the experts to ask those questions so that we can take a policy issue on that. So thank you for your comments. You're right on. And I know Mr. Turfy was more than happy to put on his tie today to come before us and explain the process and what did happen on the 24th of February. Vice Chair Palomero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, many of you have articulated spot on my thoughts on this whole process. And the county executive and the administration has long been opposed to that even being there. The commission has gone to the unusual length of when there's standard, you can't do anything about it, notices that the county receives, the commission has voted no on a receive and file item that we certainly couldn't stop. But we voted no because it had to do with this issue. We didn't want any part of this issue. I remember, Al, distinctly a few years ago, we voted no and we passed a resolution that said, get out of here. We don't want you here. But as David pointed out, it's not that easy. And I don't know for sure, but there's likely some uncomfortable truths as to who the customers are that are using that facility. I've heard that in the manufacture of an automobile, that there's some byproducts that are generated that get dumped over there. That if that is the case, and let's say it is, then where is that stuff going to go? Let's be clear. We don't want that here. Okay? That at all. Whether or not Eagle can say no by themselves, that's unclear too. Or can somebody say, no, we appeal, Commerce Clause, we're going to court, you can't stop us. It would be nice to know where does that buck stop? And I don't think any of us knows that right now. I'm not on that committee. I applaud the work of those committee members who are going to be there and answering those questions. But if we have to pass another resolution, and there's several on file already that says we don't want them here, timing's everything in life. February 1st, they had a hearing. Nobody showed up because it wasn't news. February 3rd, the train derailments happened. If you'd have had the hearing on February 10th, you couldn't have jammed Cobo Hall or whatever they call it now. Let's work together and try to get that business that is not wanted in Wayne County out of Wayne County. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Palomero. I think that summed up everyone's feelings on the topic for today. Thank you all again for indulging this very important conversation. Again, we've had it in the past, but I think it warranted to have it again today in light of what has happened. And hopefully we can come up with some resolution, working with the administration, working with the congressional delegation, working with our state delegation to just really send a message that this is not the place where this toxic waste should go. I'm not saying it has to go somewhere. We all agree it has to go somewhere, right? But right, Canada has a lot of land up there, but Wayne County is not the proper space. And we've been saying that for a couple of decades now. So with that, Commissioner Kinloch.
Yes, just one question. Would like to ask, I know that we're diving into this, but just would like our council to identify any areas that we can take through an ordinance in dealing with this issue. Specifically, is there a requirement, or can we require for this particular facility to have to provide a manifesto of items of sort that are brought into this location? Okay, if we can't do it, then maybe we should ask the legislature to provide for that manifesto for the local communities as well as the county. So just wanted to know some immediate actions, as Commissioner Knizek has stated, that we can possibly take, what we can and cannot do as relates to this this type of industry as it's regulated by the state and EPA.
Yeah, then, and again, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So once those questions and answers come out of the HSS committee, we'll talk about actually what can we and what can we not do? What do we have the power to do? What do we power not to do? Are we going to just use our bullpen to say something, or is it some effective change that we can do as it relates to laws? So council and her team will be working with HSS committee to come up with those solutions. And and decide if we can and what we can and where we can fit in to make that happen. Oh, Vice Chair Palmieri?
Thank you. Lastly, and to that point, and whether or not we can require that a business like that has to file $100 million surety bond and have it paid up front in case there is a disaster, that surety bond is the first source that we go to. Thank you.
Thank you. And things like that, those are the types of suggestions and resolutions that we will come up with going forward with that. So thank you all so much for indulging this conversation. Council, were you able to change the language at all per Commissioner Anderson's request when it came to the line?
Through the chair to this honorable body, so that revised provision would read, resolve that the Wayne County Commission strongly urges the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, EGLE, and the United States Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, to provide, as soon as it becomes aware of and it is known, immediate advance notice of, and to engage in open discussion regarding the transport through and/or disposal of toxic waste in Wayne County with the public officials and institutions established to protect the local community and residents.
Does that work?
I think it sounds fine to me. Thank you.
All right, very good. So we had a motion, did we have a motion on the resolution? I don't know if we had a motion. Is there a motion for the resolution? And
Support.
okay, it's been moved and supported as amended, the resolution as amended, and it'll be on full board on Thursday. We have a motion by Vice Chair Pro Tem Baidoon, supported by Commissioner Baker McCormick. Any further discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Turfy, for standing that entire time. We appreciate you. And we look forward to, again, working together, because this is going to be a collaboration between the administration and the commission to move something forward on this item.
Yes, of course. And before I leave, I just want to thank the staff for that day for their quick thinking. We're not an administration that calls for press conferences. And the quick thinking to call for a press conference to bring attention to this may have been the very reason why the shipments were halted that day. So I just want to thank the staff for doing a good job that night. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Madam Clerk, back to items, was it 3 and 4?
Items 5 and 6.
Okay, 5 and 6. All right. Okay, could you read the first sentence of item 5 again?
Yes, item number 5 is requesting commission approval of amendment number 2 to a 2-year comparable source professional services contract with a 2-year option to renew between the Charter County of Wayne and Blue Water Technologies Group.
Okay, so we have a young lady here in the audience. We have someone on the line. Young lady, your name and title for the record?
Tori Woods, Department of Information Technology. And also on the line is Ryan Hayes, the Director of Infrastructure, Enterprise and Infrastructure.
Okay, just explain what this item is, please, and why it is necessary to have it.
Okay, so the first item for Blue Water Technologies is essentially a contract for equipment and support services. The equipment in the conference rooms, Wayne County conference rooms here in the Guardian Building will have the equipment updated, and also the support levels on the current Blue Water contract is being updated as well.
Okay, and as was noted, the 7th floor, it is the north conference room that we utilize. Nope.
Okay.
I'm sorry, which one is it?
There is a conference room on the south end with a monitor in there that we could use for presentations. And I
Okay.
think that's part of their oversight.
So both conference rooms on the 7th floor will be impacted by this contract?
I have Ryan and Hector on Zoom. I believe it was room 730. I'm not certain. Ryan, Hector, maybe one of you could speak to if it's both rooms.
Yes, Ryan Hayes, Division Director of Computing and Infrastructure. One room will be upgraded and the other room will continue to be supported.
Supported of our regular room and upgrades to the south end room.
Yes.
Correct.
In addition to, I believe it's one conference room on each floor for Wayne County.
Any questions on the Blue Water Technologies contract? Commissioner Anderson?
My mic, okay, it's working. The question I have, it looks like it's 4 years, but with it including a 2-year extension or a 2-year option to renew. Is that correct?
This contract is for, the request is to extend it for 48 months.
Pardon me?
For 48 months.
48 months. So it's 4 years.
Yes.
Okay. I wish to abstain on this one. I may change my mind between now and the full.
Duly noted. You can stay, ma'am. We'll go to the second item. Madam Clerk, if you could read item 6.
Item number 6 is requesting commission approval of amendment number 9 to a 3-year comparable source contract with 2 one-year options to renew between the Charter County of Wayne and AT&T Corporation.
So this contract essentially is extending, we're requesting to extend the support that AT&T is currently providing for 1 year. Last month, I believe, Wayne County Commission approved a contract with Trace 3, where we solicited the current services that AT&T is providing for voice internet over protocol contract. We solicited those services, and Trace 3 was the winner of that, is awarded that contract based on the solicitation. So what we're requesting is to extend this current contract for 1 year while we go through the transition process of transitioning these services to Trace 3.
Any questions on item number 6 with AT&T? Okay, hearing no questions. Okay, thank you, ma'am. There is a motion by Commissioner Kinlock and seconded by Hayes for items number 5 and 6. One more time for questions on those 2 items. Okay, hearing none, please vote.
Motion carries, and have Commissioner Anderson as an abstention on item number 5.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Next item, please.
Such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
There are none.
Public comments.
Anyone from the public wish to address the Wayne County Commission? Is there anyone online, on Zoom or on the telephone who would like to address the Wayne County Commission? Do you see any hands? Whoever's working the thing, any hands? No hands on Zoom. Anyone on the telephone? Anyone in the chambers? Any emails? Public comments? One more time, public comments. Okay, next item.
Adjournment.
There, motion to adjourn.